Happy Monday. Today is Monday, November 25th, 2019. My name is Angela Hooper-Menifield, and this is your HR Moment with Menifield Associates. So, hopefully everybody had a great weekend. Feels like they go too short, right? Well, when we last met and spoke, we were talking about specifically how the NFL should handle the allegations between Miles Garrett and Mason Rudolph. And one of the things that really resonated with me is sometimes our immediate reaction when we hear things. And so in this moment, I'm going to be really transparent with you and share what my original thoughts were when I first heard that Miles Garrett said that Mason Rudolph had, said some inappropriate things to him, specifically racially. My first reaction was, as many of the people in the media, it was really, dude, it's been a week and now you come up with this. So to put it politely, I was skeptical. Now, the HR side of me immediately says, of course, you have to entertain that. You have to listen, see if there's any evidence. But the cynical side of me and the person who is, in my age, my generation, my personality, my disposition, I immediately thought about, well, there is no way that I would have kept quiet about that for a week. So it made it illogical for me. And I typically operate off of, is it logical? Does it make sense? Reasoning, right? And so it was illogical for me to believe that this young man had heard this, taken offense to it, and hadn't said anything. Well, let me take you back a little further. A couple of weeks ago, I shared with you guys that I have some mentees, and they're in that 21 to 23 age range. And one of them was having some struggles at work, and it was specifically in the area of some racial things being said to them. And long story short, this person has now consciously left that job and taken employment elsewhere. But when we were discussing the issues, because some more things happened in the workplace that really troubled her, I said to her, why don't you go talk to HR about this? Because one, they can't fix what they don't know, but it's important that there is some accountability and that you establish that this has been a pattern behavior because you just don't know where this is going to go. Again, not suggesting we file a complaint, but we establish that, hey, this is what's happening. And so oftentimes the reason why organizations are not improving in certain areas is because everybody knows the emperor has no clothes except him. So in other words, everybody knows this place is not conducive to a positive work environment and diversity and all these other things, but the powers that be have not been brought this information. This person, who is the exact same age as Miles Garrett, so it's 23, and she said to me, I don't feel comfortable talking to HR. I don't know them. And so when Miles issued his statement the night after everything kind of surfaced that he had made this as an allegation, I believe it was Thursday evening, part of his statement said he didn't say anything initially, but he felt within the safety and the confines of the appeal process with the NFL and at NFL headquarters, he could be able to express that and tell the total side. So immediately in that moment, this light bulb goes off for me because I'm thinking 23-year-old I mentor, Miles Garrett. Now, I'm not trying to put all 23-year-olds in the same category because clearly there are some who would have spoken up. But the point I'm making is we often gauge or judge how people respond or act to something based on how we would respond or act. And I just want us to entertain and consider, and especially those of you, again, who supervise and who lead teams and committees and, church groups and organizations, that there are some things that are not happening or don't perceive to be true, but really are. And where our judgment is getting in the way is we're expecting people to behave like we do. That's one of the reasons why I love behavioral assessments, because it reminds us there are different personality and behavioral styles. And so I had to do a double take and I had to backtrack on some of my position. Now, again, Friday's video clearly speaks to the right way to handle allegations, But the other part of this is, what are those biases that are inherent in us that make us think and feel a certain kind of way about people's veracity, their truthfulness, right? And so this is real. And so even this weekend while teaching the HR certification course for SHRM, we talked about how different cultures handle conflict. And so some of our employees are from different cultures, different backgrounds. I've done communications trainings, and I've had some of the men from different countries say to me, for instance, that I would never look a woman in the face and make eye contact with her if she wasn't my wife or something, right? And so when we're talking about, what we expect for presentations, behavior, business meetings, again, we have to always factor into there are some cultural and relationship differences, behavioral styles, and things like that. And so in the SHRM illustration, we were speaking more too about conflict, how different cultures deal with conflict, what they perceive as conflict, right? And so again, going back to this Miles Garrett incident, did the NFL handle it appropriately? I would still say no. I would also add that Miles is correct in saying that he should have been able to say what he said in the privacy of the NFL office and it not be repeated. And I even remember hearing a commentator say something about he was naive to think that was going to stay private. Perhaps he was, but appeals and HR issues should be private. That's the law. Unfortunately, because everyone wants the scoop and there's always somebody inside the room that wants to be the confidential informant, so to speak, these things are often not kept private. So I want to encourage you as a supervisor, though, if someone tells you something in a private meeting and an appeal discussion or things like that, that you're very cognizant of who needs to know what was said in that discussion and how you handle that, because employees have a right to have privacy when they discuss private things, when it deals with conduct, discipline, and consequences of those behaviors. It is not appropriate to repeat and or leak that information to the general public, to other coworkers, and or definitely not the news media. So my answer would be no, they did not handle it properly, even based on what we know, again, how they took the statements, but also that it just wasn't handled correctly because, again, those facts should have never come out of the room. And I often think sometimes we as the public think we have a right to know that. And again, I'm a Steelers fan, so I actually feel like I want to know, and I want to know, what did Mason Rudolph say? And did he defend himself? Because do I need to be looking at him with a side eye, right? But technically, I don't have a right to know. The only thing I have a right to know is what they decide they want to share publicly, whether that's in a statement or during an interview. But people, employees within organizations have a right to privacy, to what they think, what they feel, and how they respond to it. So the takeaway from today's lesson, as again, a segue or add-on from last week, is number one, be careful that we don't exact upon people our behavior. And so in other words, we should not have the expectations that because we would behave a certain way, that they would. Again, different behavioral styles, different personalities, and different generations, really, right? And again, as I play back in my mind, all the commentators saying, I don't know, because, it's hard to believe, especially if it made you that mad and you knew your job was on the line, you would speak up and you would tell people what made you behave so out of character, yada, yada, yada. And as I was listening to these gentlemen, it dawned on me too, again, these are retired NFL players. So they're not old, quote unquote, but they're older than these guys. They're at least a generation. They have kids in that ballpark, right? So is that the voice that we really want to take our expertise from when it comes to matters of conviction, behavior, response, and things like that? So I say all that to say, people are different. Meet them where they are. Be willing to entertain that someone walked away from an experience with a different approach than you, and let that be okay. And as parents, we have to do that, because I know sometimes I'm guilty of doing that as a parent as well. So again, my name is Angela Hooper-Menifield. I work with plenty of organizations that have, 5 generations on board, right? Everywhere from the baby boomers to, you know, I don't even know what we call in this new generation right now that's younger than the millennials. But people show up with different intentions. The way they handle conflict is different. The way they perceive what is conflict is different. So again, we cannot project upon other people to respond in the manner that we would. So I say all that to say, be willing to entertain the possibility that someone is telling you the truth, even if they wait a long time to tell you what happened. How people deal with conflict differs. It differs by age, generation, culture, background, personality style. There are so many things that come into play when we think about that. So as the leader of an organization, a supervisor, team leader, whatever, again, consider that and don't impose your standards of how you behave on other people. Thank you again. Today is Monday, November 25th, 2019, and I'm Angela Hooper-Menifield with your HR Moment. Have a great day. Bye-bye.